All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're taking a look at something pretty interesting, Power Query,
Yes.
and a function called Comparer.FromCulture. Now, you might be thinking, what does culture have to do with data?
Right.
But trust me, this is one of those things that can really trip you up if you're not careful, especially when working with data from around the world.
Yeah, it's one of those things that seems so simple, like, oh, I'll just sort this alphabetically, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute.
Right.
Alphabetical in Germany is different than alphabetical in the United States. They have different rules about flouts and all sorts of things.
And what about, like, different character sets?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
So before we get too deep into the weeds, can we just take a step back and make sure everyone's on the same page?
Sure.
What exactly is Power Query?
Well, think of Power Query as like this super powerful data transformation tool.
Okay.
Like it's built into Excel and Power BI. And it lets you clean up your data, reshape it, get it ready for analysis.
Like getting it ready for the big dance.
Exactly.
So Comparer.FromCulture. Where does this fit into all of this?
Well, you see, when you're working with data from different cultures, you need a way to tell Power Query how to compare things.
Yeah.
Because like we were saying before, alphabetical order isn't always the same.
Right.
So this function lets you create a custom comparison tool.
A custom comparison tool so I can tell it how to compare things based on the specific culture I'm working with.
Exactly. You got it.
That's pretty cool.
It is. It's super powerful.
So I'm looking at the description of this function, and it says it returns a comparer function.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
A compare function is basically like a set of rules that tells Power Query how to compare two values.
So it's not actually changing the data itself. It's just giving Power Query instructions on how to compare.
Exactly. We're getting it.
That's starting to make a lot more sense. Now, I also see this mention of locales supported by the operating system.
Right.
That sounds a little intimidating.
It's not as bad as it sounds. Basically, it just means that Power Query will use the language and regional settings that are already set up on your computer.
So I don't need to install a bunch of language packs or anything.
Nope, it just works.
That's a relief. So let's say I'm working with a list of names. Some are from Germany, some are from France, some are from Japan.
Okay.
How would I use Comparer.FromCulture to sort this list correctly?
Well, first you would need to figure out the culture code for each country.
Culture code.
Yeah, it's like a short code that identifies the language and region.
Okay.
So for Germany, it would be DDE.
DD, got it.
For France, it would be FR.
Okay.
And for Japan, it would be JJP.
Makes sense.
Then you would use Comparer.FromCulture to create a separate comparer function for each culture.
So I'd have 3 different compare functions, one for each country.
Right.
And then I could use those to sort the names correctly.
Exactly.
This is so much more powerful than just using a standard alphabetical sort.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm already starting to see all sorts of ways I could use this in my own work.
That's what I like to hear.
So there's this optional parameter called ignore case.
Yes.
What's that all about?
That's just a way to tell Power Query whether or not to consider case when comparing values.
So if ignore case is set to true, then John Smith and John Smith would be considered the same.
Exactly.
And if it's set to false, then they would be considered different.
Right. That's pretty handy. It is, especially when you're working with data that might have inconsistent capitalization.
I can definitely see that being a problem.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
But I think the big takeaway here is that culture really matters when you're working with data.
Absolutely.
And Comparer.FromCulture is a powerful tool that can help you avoid all sorts of headaches.
It's a real lifesaver.
So for all of you listening out there, I want you to think about the data you work with. Could there be any hidden cultural nuances that are affecting your analysis? And how could Comparer.FromCulture help you unlock deeper, more accurate insights?
It's a great question to ask yourself.
As always, keep diving deep. We'll see you next time.